He may be America's most popular sex advice columnist, but these days, Dan Savage is probably best known for one of two things. First, the It Gets Better project, an extraordinary act of empathy created by Dan and his husband, Terry Miller.
We have really great lives together.
And you can have a great life, too.
It reaches out to LGBT youth to let them know that there is hope for a better life.
It gets better.
It gets better.
It gets better. And then there was this, Dan calling on his fan base to create a new and sexually explicit definition of Santorum. That's in retaliation for perceived anti-gay comments made by Republican Senator and future presidential candidate Rick Santorum.
You oppose gay marriage.
I do.
You oppose civil unions. You want to reinstate don't ask, don't tell.
And it was that definition that rose to the top of the Google rankings. That Google bomb pretty much sums up Dan Savage. Controversial, raunchy, funny as hell, but about something. Equality. The evidence, by the way, if you need more, can be found at his syndicated sex column and podcast called Savage Love, and in his best-selling books, the latest of which is called American Savage. It's a straight talk on faith, sex, love, and politics. Please welcome Dan Savage! How are things? Good, how are you? Very well. Very well. Listen, I mean, I suppose you've had some opportunity to think about this, and maybe at great length, but when you started and people started to really get to know you as a columnist, even an advice columnist, that this is the place you would be in your career.
Which place is that?
Well, I mean, it's not just advocate, but it's like, I kind of equate you to that diamond tip at the head of the drill that's really taken a lot of abuse, but pushing through to make this a better place and a more equal place. Could you have imagined that that's where you would have been?
No, I was an activist for a long time. I was in ACT UP a million years ago. I was a gay rights activist on my college campus. And I didn't think when I started writing the column that it would become a form of activism, but it really did. Nothing changes people like knowing someone who's gay.
Right.
It changes their homophobia or their transphobia or their lesbian phobia or biphobia. And for a lot of particularly young heterosexuals who are reading my column, who are in high school or in college, I'm the gay guy they know. And I think I'm a pretty good gay guy to know when you're 20 years old, at least at a distance through a newspaper column.
But what's the example of a pretty bad gay guy to know?
Jeffrey Dahmer, I think, would be a bad gay guy to know.
That's just a bad guy in general to know.
Yeah. Sexuality
aside. But you're right. So for a lot of people, their first relationship in reading something from the perspective of a gay man is you.
Right, and I'm pretty aggressive and demanding, but I have a sense of humor. I'm not the kind of gay person who's going to dissolve into a puddle of tears if we have a disagreement, or you get in my face for a minute, I'll get in your face for a minute, and then we can be buds again. And that's important, you know. You can't hold grudges when you're asking people to change and asking people to move and reassess their prejudices and their bigotries. Once they come around, you have to accept and embrace their new position and who they are now.
You talked about the accountability of those who are hearing somebody in their family come out. What is the accountability? Because, you know, Rick Mercer did this great rant on here where he said now's the time where if you're gay and in the closet, maybe it's time that you have to come out. Is there responsibility for the gay community? And I know the coming out thing is so personal, but is there a bigger picture here?
Yeah, you have a responsibility to be out. I think you have a moral obligation to be out.
You do, okay.
That means not being out is a moral failing, but nobody can compel you to be out. I think if you don't want to be out for whatever reason, you should own that as a moral failing. All of us in our lives are guilty of, at times, moral failings. It's not like because you have this moral failing, you should be dragged out behind the barn and shot, but you have to own it. You have to eat it.
But it's pretty heavy to hear that, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be heavy. People are dying. Like, people are murdered every day all over the world because they're LGBT, and nothing lessens the chances of people being harmed for being LGBT than other people knowing they know people who are queer.
That's certainly true in North America. Do you think it's true in some of the more complicated regions of the world?
Individual results may vary, and you do have to take your circumstances into account. I'm always telling 15, 16, 17-year-olds who are thinking about coming out, who are worried to not come out if they feel like they'll be retaliated against, if their families will kick them out. 40% of homeless kids are queer kids who were thrown out after they came out or outed, and queer kids are only 3.5 to 5% of the population of kids. That's a huge number. Yeah. So I would never tell somebody in a risky circumstance they have a moral obligation to be out. I'm talking about adults. You're out of the house, you're through school, you've got a job, you're employed. You're not out to your mom and dad because you're scared. Eat me. You're not out to your mom and dad because this inheritance. Eat me.
When you came out to your parents, the reaction was?
I never want to meet a boyfriend. Don't bring anyone around this house. My mother called a priest who, this is a great story. her first impulse was to call a priest, which is just not a great first impulse when your son comes out to you.
It's great for the priest.
Yeah, it is. My teenage son came out to me. I'll be right there. Don't let him leave the house. Hide his pants. But I joke. This priest was wonderful. He came to the house. I had just come out to my mother. She was in a panic about what to do. She had friends who were telling her to have me put in, committed, basically. But I was 18, so she couldn't. But they were pushing her to shove me into some sort of therapy program. And my mother had this priest over and just was in a panic. Like, Danny told me he's gay. I don't know what to do. And this priest, Father Tom, God bless him, put his hand on my mother's knee and said, Judy, I'm gay.
Really?
Yeah, and came out to my mother. At that moment,
Jesus.
right?
What a backfire for your mom.
I know. No, it was good for her. It was what she needed to hear. Because she had been friends with this guy, Father Tom, for 30 years.
Right,
and
right.
He had been in and out of alcohol treatment programs, and he had had a very rocky and rough and unhappy life. And at that moment, she realized why he had had such a rocky and unhappy life. And it was because he was in the closet and suppressing who he really was. So, I joke a lot about Catholic priests. Everybody tells jokes, the Catholic rape scandals and child sexual abuse problems. But my experience, I was a Catholic altar boy. My dad was a Catholic deacon. I worked in a rectory as a teenage boy. My experience with Catholic priests in the field, one-on-one, has never been anything but 100% positive.
You were talking about that's your mother's relationship. So you're sitting on the couch, you're watching a television show with your father, and a gay character comes on TV.
Yeah.
What show were you watching?
Barney Miller.
Right, that's a huge episode. No, dude, for me, I thought it was either Barney Miller or Soap, because Billy Crystal played a gay character. But Barney Miller, that's one of the first times that I'd ever seen a gay guy on television. How did your dad react to that?
What was funny was my dad was a cop. He loved Barney Miller because it looked like real police work, which is a bunch of schlumpy, middle-aged white guys sitting around doing paperwork in a dirty office. Yeah. They weren't like running down the street with guns. They weren't Angie Dickinson. And
as much as you wanted them to be.
It was set in the Greenwich Village. It was set in New York City in the Village, and there was like a really faggy guy with a poodle. He was really effeminate. He was always having problems with his boyfriend. It was a kind of a regular recurring role on the show. And he came on the show, and my dad and I are sitting there watching television, and there's this gay guy, and I'm a teenager almost, and he was always really uncomfortable with me because I was gay. It wasn't. Some people say gay kids who have you had a bad relationship with your father, that made you gay. No, I had an awkward, strained relationship with my father because I was gay. And it created this rift that we couldn't bridge. And he sat there, and there was a joke, and he sat there not laughing. And I interpreted that as he hates gay people. And I'm a gay person. And oh my God, right? Yeah. And years later, we talked about it. And he said, oh no, I just didn't laugh because I didn't want to make you feel bad.
Man, life's filled with those moments, isn't it?
Right.
Stick around, more Dan Savage after this. All right, up next, two classics of modern cinema, Brokeback Mountain and Paul Blart Mall Cop. We'll make Dan choose between them.
You're a nasty old man.
I'd like to make one of those It Gets Better ads for just dumpy young guys. We could use a little help. A little encouragement, just somebody on TV. Listen, man, I know it's tough right now. You're vaguely heavy with no face. You have zero value on the sexual marketplace. You feel invisible to the girls in school because you are. But it gets better.
Except it doesn't, is what he says. Yeah. But everybody started the parody. And the parodies took off. What did you think of that?
I've always welcomed them. I have a sense of humor about everything.
You made a Louis C.K. bit, dude. That's pretty big.
Yeah, I know, right? And I hope schlumpy young straight guys take hope from his little It Gets Better video.
Anthropology, you ready? If you had to choose one, which would be your choice? All right, car or bicycle?
Bicycle.
Lust or love?
Pass.
Take a stand, buddy.
One flows into the other. You don't usually have romantic love without a moment of lust first. You can't actually separate those two things. That's a scrambled egg. You can't pick the yolk or the white.
How about the political, emotional version of lust or love? Gun control or health care?
Well, I think if you don't have gun control, you goddamn need national health care. And we don't have gun control or health care.
How about this? Brokeback Mountain or Paul Blart Mall Cop?
God, guess Brokeback Mountain? That's a hard choice.
Is it now?
God, I'm a terrible person. Giovanni Room is this famous novel about, the tormented closet case, and I couldn't read it because I just kept laughing. I just thought it was ridiculous. I watched Brokeback Mountain and I laughed. I didn't think it was tragedy. I thought it was pathetic.
How come?
Like, come out and move away. Get in your goddamn truck and drive someplace. It was the 70s. Go to San Francisco. They will love your bow legs. They will love them to death.
Is there a Republican? What's it? Michael Savage? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Weiner.
Michael Weiner.
His real name is Weiner. Michael Savage is this right-wing Republican shock jock in the United States.
Right.
His real name is Weiner, but he stole Savage.
So when your book is called American Savage, does he just hate that?
I hope so. All real savages, and I'm a real savage, it's my family name, we all hate that fake Savage, Michael Weiner.
What a pleasure to see you, man.
Nice to see you too.
So
Thanks for having me.
American Savage, everybody. Also, of course, he's got the column that you can read all the time. It's called Savage Love. We'll be right back.